So this is the basics of lights turning on. So this will make everything else seem easier because you'll be able to do this stuff. So what you do is you have these triggers. You'll find them in your creative playlist right here, triggers. And you want to use these to sequence the lights. So you want to use one channel to turn them on and a different channel to turn them off. Never use the same channels. So you can see here it's activated by a lot of things, but you want to make sure the number one thing, this is how I got my consoles to work, is make sure it's triggered by sequencers. Because that's what these are, you want to make sure you have these. It doesn't matter what speed they are or anything, as long as this is triggered, it says yes, it'll activate the lights or turn them off. Next thing you want to do is, if you want to be able to play them over and over again, you would put on infinite. If you only want to play once and not play again by accident, you want to put it on 1. Because it only shows right below the number of times this device can be triggered. So it can only turn on the lights once, and then you can turn them off once again. Once you set one of these triggers up correctly like this, you will be able to just copy and paste it and change the channel. So you don't have to have all this stuff off, but you want to make sure that the main things you want to make sure that are on are trigger sequencers. Make sure it can transmit once or infinite. Make sure this is once, because then it won't send a bunch of signals all at once. Only one signal. Make sure if you don't have delay, it's all your choice. I turn off sound from these triggers because they're annoying and they make a lot of noise. But if you want them on, you can have the sound on and the special effects from them. The visible in game part has to always be a yes. The triggers have to be visible, because if they are not visible, apparently they will not work. Like, they will not send a signal to the actual thing because they're invisible from the sequencer. The last thing you want to make sure they are enabled at game start, and you pick the channel it's transmitting on. So when it's triggered, this is the only thing you want to mess with in channels. When it's transmitted, you want to make sure it transmits onto channel 1 or whatever channel you have it going on to. Once you have all this stuff set up, you can copy and make it a different channel, and that's all you have to do. Like that. And then it'll be completely like the same one over there, but then it'll have a new signal to send. Now about how to get the lights to work and turn off and on, because these are sending signals to this. So you can see right first of all, you go to channels and you'll have turn on channel 1, the first channel it hits, and turn off on channel 2, which is the last channel it hits. You always want to make sure that the channels are correct. You no need to mess with any of these down here. Now, to find the lights, you go to your creative inventory, go to galleries, and you go to lights, and you'll see customizable light gallery. Don't use this because it does not let you customize the lights. Same thing with stage prop, do not use it. Customizable light gallery. It will let you basically use any of the lights here, and you can customize single lights, multiple, a group of 4 lights, like just like a whole group, or you can do torches, which I'll show later over there. Next, you want to make sure, since they come on in the color when they're first given to you, you want to make sure that you have them on for now. Since you want to pick, you can pick your color, you can pick the team filter, which if you don't want people turning them off and on, I recommend turning the initial team color filter, I think? Yes. So the turn off team filter and the turn on team filter to none. Not all, none, because they'll be on all at the beginning. Because then people can't turn them off and on. Now you can pick how much time it takes to turn on the light or turn off the light, so you can make it have a delay a little bit. It'll like fade on or fade off. I have it instant though. The color change time, same here. You can make the color of the brightness lights. When you get them, they'll be at 5, so the brightest they get is 10. You want to make sure that the initial state is off if you're making some type of creation, or you can have them on, initially on, and then turn off later on. The next Make sure that you can actually do it by sequencer too, but if you don't want your sequencer to be seen, I would recommend turning it off, or you could just keep it on. It doesn't matter. As long as they're not touching the sequencer. And that should be it. And when you can create that, it should turn lights on and off. If you were able to make it past step 1, you should be able to do step 2, which is doing multiple of these. What I did is very simple. This is now a new channel. I'm not using the same channels from over there. I'm using new ones. Because it's always just going to keep going up in numbers. You can sometimes reuse them with the same type of lights, but I recommend always doing this, since there's 100 different channels. So, what I did was I made a channel 3, sequencing to these lights. I just copied and pasted it, because now you don't have to worry about the settings, you're just changing channels. So I have channel 3 for these, and then I have channel 4 for these, same here, channel 4, it's connecting to those, and then channel 5 for these. These will all disable when channel 6 is hit, and then they can repeat. So if you want to make go up, if you want multiple lights to go out all at once, like at a time, kind of like a row, or a kind of like a line of lights that turn on, I recommend doing this type of style, because it could be very useful and it can change the color. You can do lots of stuff with it. I used it for my console to turn off and on. You can switch between two different lights if you really want to, so you can make this channel 3 turn on at channel 3, these lights turn on at channel 3 and then turn off at channel 4, while these ones turn on at channel 4 and turn off at channel 3, so you can switch between them and turn these lights on and switch them back and forth. Now that you have done those 2 steps, you can finally sequence it to music. I recommend sequencing it to some type of special note that can be heard very clearly, or maybe just a bass drum in the back. And see here, I have sequenced it with each dink here. This is the end theme for Fortnite. I remixed. And now you can see that they all went off at once when they're clicked, because the lights are sequenced, and that's how I got the lights to sequence. But I didn't put them next to the music. I would put them in the stage, and they would turn on at certain points during the song, each one being sequenced into one point using these 2 steps. Of course, these are to turn on, because I use these a couple of times. As you can see, it's basically the same things I use with lights. They come in the same gallery. They turn off, they turn on, and they turn off. I use more different channels. And you can see, each one of these are the same. The settings are very simple. They're the same thing as the lights, except they're a little bit different. Everything's the same, all it is just the torch. Now to turn on the air vents, or off if you would like. I could just use the same triggers. You go ahead and you go into this air vent, and you can see these. Anyway, now for the air vents. Where you can find these are in your devices category, and you will see right here air vent gallery. And you will want to place those down, and you want to get this one. This is what I use in my concerts to lift us up during certain parts of a song. And you could transform that into the actual song itself, right in this step 3. What I did is, all you have to do is make sure when you get these, they'll be on. when they're enabled on all phases. You don't want that to be on. You want it to be off on all phases. Because don't worry, it will enable when it's triggered to. Only when. You can pick the force, you can pick the how high you can go, you can pick up the knockup percentage. That does not matter. As long as it's sequenced, enabled from this channel, and disabled on this channel, everything should work. Nothing else really matters. Very simple. And you can see 13, channel 14. You can make these go longer. I know what I just showed was really quick, but you can make them stay on for a certain amount of time and then turn off instantly. Now for this step, you can see this is for particles. These are the different particles I have. There is many of these, there's different types, but the ones I use are in the lights category of galleries, and it'll be the ones with the fireworks. And you want to use these, and it'll have different particles you can use, such as sparks, the weird fireflies I had, or fireworks, smoke. And basically, it's very simple. This one's more simple, probably the simplest you can use. It turns on at channel 11 and turns off at channel 12. You can see that it turns. You want to make sure this is when you get these, they'll actually be on. So you want to make sure it's off. No phases. And it turns on channel 11, turns off at channel 12. Basically the same as the air vents. Very simple, very fast. Once you can understand the main two steps. Is basically the same as the particle effects, just different types. So same thing again, this turns on, turns it off. And you can see right here, channel 17 and channel 18. The beacon style is, you know, this is the beacon. There's different types. There's 3 different types, and you can find this in your lights, and you'll find it right here, beacon gallery. There's 3 different types of stuff you can use in and about the whole rainbow of colors, I guess. And you can see channel 17, channel 18 is when they turn on and off. Very simple. All this other stuff is stuff you can pick, but the main things you need to turn them off and on are just the channels. Last but not least, you're probably wondering how I had made my whole background of my stages glow. Well, what happens here is I'm using a radio to be activated, because I'm using the light gallery that connects to it. You can get all these props by going to your music, and you'll find it right here. There's the bigger one, and then there's the smaller one. I recommend using the smaller one, but if you want the bigger one, it can work. You'll get the radio with this, and you'll get all these different things you can use that will sequence it to the music. All of them will play. What you do is you gotta make sure for your radio, you pick the song you want, because each song has a different effect for the lights. There's many songs you can use. For me, when I'm making my concerts, I don't want to hear the music in the background when I'm having this music playing, so I put it on very low. And you want to make sure this is not visible in game unless you're hiding it somewhere outside of the stage or outside of what your game is going to be. But I can put it on very low or low. I only played it so you guys can hear the sound because there's no music playing. But I'll make sure it's not visible in game. In the visualization, you want to make sure that's on, because if it's not on, those props over there will not light up to comparing to the music. Make sure your channels is playing when it's channel 19. It doesn't have to be 19, but it can be any channel, as long as you don't reuse a channel that's connected to another thing, unless you're purposely doing it. And then channel 20 turns off on channel 20, turns on channel 19. Now, I always make sure that the radio is not playing, so I make sure it's off through everything. It's just off on everything, so you want to make sure it's always off. And for my audio distance, I make it at least a 1, so then you can barely hear it at all. You'd have to literally go down near it to hear it. And you can see here, same thing, nothing that you need to do much. Very simple, very easy.